I was wondering, because there are so many different levels, students from beginners to medium to advanced. When you teach your students, how do you do that?
Well, it depends on what I'm teaching. Most of the time when I teach, I'm teaching pedagogy, how to approach learning to master playing an instrument so that you can execute what you may be hearing. If you're talking about songwriting, that's something I think that's very individual to every person. And I think that you have to have a knowledge of theory and harmony, meaning I encourage everyone to play piano. Guitar is fine, but with the piano, the keys are laid out there from the low end of the piano to the high end of the piano. You can create melody, harmony, and rhythm. Have to have an understanding of piano. And I'll say, let's start with songs you know already. And always try to get them to sing. And a lot of jazz musicians, they are maybe too cool to sing. And the reason I say you sing, because if I can play any note on the piano. I hit the note on the piano, the sound's going to come out of the piano. But when the sound comes from your body, that means that you've internalized the sound. So whether it's your melody, whether it's your song, whether it's a phrase. And I try to teach them to use their own natural ability to create a song. And it may just be a phrase. But I mean, you take a song like, let's say, that uses simple chords, like Stevie Wonder, "For so long any night I pray," "A Ribbon in the Sky." So you have 7 scale degrees. It uses the 3 that are minor. The 2 chord to the 3 chord to the 6 chord, over and over. And I'm just gonna slide to the piano for a second. But it's like 2. It's 3 chords. And yeah, I'll give them songs to work on, like whether it's vocal students. Okay, if you're studying classical music, I'm going to give you something that you're not studying, something new. That may be gospel. It may be Stevie Wonder. You have to, first of all, find songs that are great in terms of what it is that you're trying to teach. And Earth, Wind, and Fire, Stevie Wonder, and so many. And it doesn't have to be jazz. I said, learn this song, but then learn to play it at the piano. Give them something, a simple, attainable task. And once they find out, it's like, oh, I can learn this. I can sing this. Those notes are all in the major scale. How do you figure that out? I said, instead of approaching it like a mathematical problem, try to sing it before you learn how to play it. Because if you sing it, now it's in your body.
Right.
That's kind of how I approach that, whether it's pedagogy on the trombone or even if it's learning to sing or to write a song. I was very bad with lyrics. And a very good friend of mine, Jay Linhart, he told me, he said, keep writing, just keep writing. He said, you might end up throwing a lot of stuff away, but the more you write, the more you practice writing, you'll get better at it. And
That's
that was
right.
some of the best advice that he had given me. So a lot of times you want students that want the short route. How can I learn how to play really good very quickly? How can I write a hit? I'm like, I don't know the answer to those questions. But you want to be true to yourself. And for me, I like to play what I'm hearing and what I feel. And sometimes I don't have the words to express it, but I can notate it on the music. And, that's why you have people some people write the songs, some write the lyrics. Some do both.
I was going to ask you, when you said the melody came to you when you're driving it, whatever, do you hear the chorus? Or?
I do. The chords in relation to the melody. I can kind of hear the chord progression. Now, I couldn't always do that, but from playing the piano and practicing the piano, it's like you have a lot of like 2-5-1 movement. I mean, we can take your tune, Mercy Joy, da da da, do do do, to the 5 chord, it gets 2-5-1. You hear that in a lot of
chord
you hear it in a
progression.
lot of music, and once you learn that what you hear and what you listen to all the time, it's that's what that is. A lot of people make music difficult, but music is really simple, and I feel attainable by anyone that just puts a little effort into it. And you don't have to practice 4 or 5 hours a day who doesn't like music? Now you might
Right.
like a different style of music, but who doesn't like music? You take that song by which one? Now that's 2-5-1 movement. More than words, something like that. The guy playing guitar and two guys singing. It's like 2-5-1. Yeah, 1-6, 2-5-1. You learn a lot of that in jazz, but a lot of times, unless you're a vocalist, sometimes the jazz instrumentalists are more concerned with the chord structure itself, and if not realizing that if you actually sing through the chord structure and you improvising, which means you're making up melodies anyway. A lot of times people create songs they don't even realize because I'm improvising. I'm in the moment. Well, freeze that moment. What's so special about some of the moments that we create? People create songs all the time and not even realize it. So, and it could be a phrase,
Right.
Or it's vocalists that don't play the piano or haven't had much experience playing it. If you can find a simple song that you can start with, it can be "Mary Had a Little Lamb," but there's some basics that if you just did some work, it would be. I said, oh, okay. And even if you're not going to sit down and play Beethoven or Rachmaninoff, you can still sit down and play through a few chords or even your melody. And, to do simple things like to figure out what key you're going to sing in. So then you're not always reliant on, and if you have a musical director, which a lot of people did, like Aretha Franklin had a musical director, but that was so they could take care of the music. So by the time she came to rehearsal, sound check of the show, they're ready to go. But Aretha Franklin could play the piano and played it very well. Ella Fitzgerald could play the piano. So, Sarah Vaughan, she was a great pianist. Nat King Cole, great singer, but he was even, I think he was even a greater piano player, but he opened up his mouth on a gig and sang one day, and the rest is history. Still one of the greatest jazz piano players ever.
He was a pianist first.
Yeah.
Right.
But he's known as a vocalist. I mean, a very good one also.
That's true.
So, and I'll say this about most musicians in jazz, they play piano. Diane Reeves, I know she plays guitar, but she also plays piano. She understands that. And it's not that difficult to do. It's not something that you had to start when you were 3 or 4 years old. Because once you connect to music in that way, it's like, music that seems difficult, and even playing piano that seems difficult, it's not. It's only 12 notes.
That's what everybody says, only 12 notes, but
12 notes.
Combine, and then you...
Yeah, but it's only 12 notes. You can spread them over the octave. It's only 12 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Then you're back at that octave. 1, 2, 3. Same thing all the way up or all the way down. That's the thing that if I were teaching you, I said, I want you to learn to play. You can sing this. Now I want you to sit down and play it. I'm going to show you how to play it. I think I found your CD about a month ago. I'm going through things I haven't gone through in a long time. I was like, let me put this on. Mercy Joy in the City, Geisha Girl. I was like, okay, cool. And it was a nice project. But it's like now I'm at the point where I can listen. It's okay. I know that chord movement or that chord motion by just listening to it one time. And if you ever just sit to the piano and play through a couple of things, you just need a few basics. And you don't have to take weekly piano lessons and that kind of thing. But, that's what I would do to kind of tag on to what you were asking me earlier.
But when you play in jazz, every time, like you said, improvisation. And it's almost like a songwriting in progress.
But before, jazz is done mostly in small venues. So when you're doing large performances, like even back in 1940 or 41, when Duke Ellington was really popular, they want to hear the songs. The solos would be different, but they want the songs to be the same. It's like, that's what I learned. I want to hear that version. And jazz musicians, a lot of us that are creative may not understand that because we always want to do something different. But when I played smooth jazz with David Sanborn, and he wanted to put a show together with a new quintet. I was the other horn, and then he had piano, bass, and drums. And for 4 years in a row, we played the same songs in the same order. Only thing would be different. We were allowed to create and to create on our solos, but the form pretty much was the same. And I remember the first time I did the Smooth Jazz Cruise. They're great musicians, but the show, they did the same show. They had one show. They may perform 4 or 5 times, but they had, with the exception of the improvised solos, the show was going to be the same. It's like when Michael Jackson is preparing for his tour, or Janet is preparing for their tour, but they're playing big venues. So there's, they or Beyonce, and I don't necessarily watch all of those things, but that show is going to be the same in every city, with the exception of, if you have an improvised solo, you may be able to get away with it, but if you're playing with Anita Baker, they're going to want to hear that saxophone solo that's on the record.
Sure. Then what about scatting?
Some people don't like it. I love to scat in terms of scat singing. It was what musicians did, like Louis Armstrong, when he was young, on the corner, they didn't have instruments. So they imitated instruments with their mouth. You listen to Pops, Louis Armstrong, like Ella Fitzgerald, what is she singing? When you hear her go, she's singing Airmail Special. She knows the tune, but she knows Charlie Parker solos. She knows Dizzy Gillespie solos, and she can sing them. So she developed her scat by doing what back in the early 1900s the kids would do, who couldn't afford instruments. They pretend like they were an instrument, and that's kind of how scatting was born. And the first scat solo on recording was Louis Armstrong. It was 1923 or 26, I forget the year, but he was doing a tune called Heebie Jeebies, and they said that the paper fell off the stand, and they didn't want to lose the take, because unlike Pro Tools now, they were recording on an Edison reel. So he just kept singing, bop, boop, bop, deep, bop, big, zip, so, and they kept the tape. And he didn't invent scat singing, but he was the first one to record it on record. Scat singing. Fun thing to do. I've heard people say some people like it, some people don't. I've heard very established jazz musicians, I don't like scat singing. I'm like, well, why not? You don't like it when Ella does it? You don't like it when Louis Armstrong does it? You don't like it?
That's the point, because not everybody is so pleasant. But I can hear you scatting all day.
I practice a lot. So these people that I'm talking about, some of them just say they don't like scat singing in general. I mean, you have the yin and the yang, the yes and the no, the up and the down. There's people for anything and everything. And like, okay, you don't like scat singing. Well,
okay, so how do you practice?
How do I practice? I imitate. Like when I'm playing. Yeah, so I play stuff. So I imitate what I hear horn players doing, but most importantly, I've developed a pretty somewhat expansive vocabulary. I try when I don't have my horn in my hand. That's why I'm singing all the time. And then sounds is like, how do you want that to come across? It's like the difference between Luther singing boom, 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 and or somebody, and not that I would ever try to sound like Luther. If you're singing a love song, or if you're singing something, hallelujah, if you're singing something that's driving it, how do you want your message to come across? It's like you're talking to somebody. You're in a football game, you're like, hey, throw the ball. Or if you're talking to someone, hey, Tomoko, what you been up to? What's happening? You know what I mean? So it's, how do you want to communicate what it is you're saying? Mm-hmm. So that determines how. You don't want to go, if you're not used to playing or singing that way, then you want to start with something that's simple. Like,
Right.
again, Louis Armstrong. It sounds simple, but it may be simple melodically, but rhythmically it's really hit. That
Mhm.
did that do that do that do we. That's not hard. Boop, bop, boop, boop, bop, do, do. You can hear that. And once
Yeah.
you start doing that and just learn a phrase, like a blues phrase. Ah, bit, bit, bitty, yo, do it. You'll sing phrases over and over, and then they become a part of your vocabulary. And then,
Right. Right.
I mean, that's what I do. I hear someone, oh man, that's bad. I don't try to pick up my horn and play it. If I hear something I think is bad, as in good, I just try to sing it.
Right. Music is a language, and the more vocabulary you have, more rich.
Yes,
That's right.
yes.
Okay, great. Thank you
Mm-hmm.
so much for that little crash course. We want to get to the final part. Nowadays, everything is digital and everything. How do you make money?
You have to. There are many different ways to make money. As I said earlier, I try to encourage my students to have more than one stream of income. You want to be a musician? Okay, well, you can perform. Yes, you get paid to perform. Whose music? Other people's music? Yeah, okay, you get paid to perform other people's music, and you get them paid also because they're registering their songs. But as a student of music, if you really want to make a difference, start to write a song,
Mhm.
and perform your song on all of your gigs. So I happen to work in jazz a lot. So when I go to colleges and universities, when I first started out, after I left the Lincoln Center Jazz Orchestra, colleges and universities were calling, and I go, they said, well, this is what we have in our catalog. You want to play this? Do you know this? I said, I'll play whatever. Now, I'm like, yeah, I love to play concert at your school, but I want to play my music. I'll play some of your tunes, but I have my music, my compositions, my arrangements, if it's for big band, up on my website. And I say you can purchase them. I have a publishing company. So I belong to ASCAP, the American Society of Composers,
Mhm.
Authors, and Publishers. So I'm all three. I'm a composer because I write, I compose music in different styles, mostly jazz. But I'm an author because I also write lyrics. Like I told you about Jay Leonhardt. Like, I need to put lyrics to this song. I'd be so skeptical about writing lyrics, and I started doing that. And then publisher. I have my publishing company, Cone Music. It's the name of my corporation, but also my publishing company. So if I record my music, I have to understand about the business, which is so important. If I'm recording a CD and I want to record Tomoko's music, well, I need to pay you a
Right.
fee
Right.
to record your music on my record
Mhm.
up to 2,499 copies. After that, I have to pay you again. And that's a mechanical license for you, but then I record my own music. I don't have to pay a fee. And then if someone else records my music, then I have to pay my publishing company. And then there's the performances when I go. Like I said, I go to colleges and universities, and even on gigs, if I play in clubs, I report the songs that I play. If I'm performing my music, which I always try to do, I try to get it in some way, shape, or form, a composition or an arrangement, I can report that. It's not a lot of money, but you go on record, just you're playing your music, and your music is in play. And you have to stay mindful of the times. The boxes that are behind me up
Mhm.
there, they're CDs because I still love physical CDs. But I
Yes.
remember when my management told me that people are moving into digital, I needed to go to a digital format. So now, if you can buy my physical CD or you can download it. I
Yeah.
am guilty, and that was a rough question years ago. People, what do you think about Spotify and the streaming services? And I know a lot of people were upset and mad because musicians get a percentage of pennies on the penny, and then I had to think about it. It's like there has to be an upside, and the upside is people get to hear your music that would never hear your music. It's available to them, and
Exactly.
you get exposure that you wouldn't get. And yes,
Yep.
it's not a lot of money, but
No.
Who's buying records now anyway? And also how that works. When you put your music up in a digital format, you want to make sure that you kind of keep control, because everyone that does it, they get a percentage. And when my CD, I did Hello Pops, I think, some kind of way it got on Amazon, and I was selling my CDs for either $14 or $15. Then you could go on Amazon and buy my CD for $5. I was like, oh no, click, take it down. I said, because that's how, and anything that I've done, and I started a record company also, not to compete with other record companies, but I got tired of, I was thankful for the records I did on Crisscross and Knuckle Hire, but it would be whenever they wanted me to record or whenever they wanted to record me. I said, with my record company, I can record whenever I wanted to. And I didn't mind helping a few friends out that were getting started. I don't have that budget like, I don't have an A&R person that's like, I'll help you get your record out, but you're going to have to do it, whether it's the mixing and mastering or whatever. But I do have a record company, so I put out my own records. I own the publishing on all of my songs. And if you want to buy my music, you can buy it on my website directly from me. And that's mechanical licenses, which you go through the Harry Fox agency if I want to record your music with someone else. Or they have to go through them if they want to record my music and sell it on physical CDs. But then there's the print publishing. And it's been pretty good for me, because you want to buy my songs, where I used to print my songs out like this, stick them in an envelope, address it, and put a stamp on it. Now you can just buy it directly online.
Sheet music, yeah?
Yeah, so print publishing is advances in modern technology have changed the game, so we as individual artists can have a little more control over. Now, you may not have the power of a big record company or a publishing company, but you own 100% of what it is that you put out. And you can do it relatively inexpensively nowadays. And I talk with students about that all the time. You can come to me to talk about music improvisation, chord changes, and all of that. But my main concern is, how am I going to live and how am I going to eat? Because it's hard to play when you're hungry. It's hard to read music when the lights are cut off.
Yeah.
And so the business thing, the business part of this is something I take very, very seriously. I have a job teaching at a university, but now I'm home around all my instruments. And
can you show us little 360 degrees?
Some of them. So there's two of my keyboards here, trombones. You see my bass guitar, more trombone, my tuba. There's in my organ, A100, one piano. I probably should have cleaned up, but here's my studio set up here. And that's so I have another piano, and that's most of them. My upright bass is not in this room, and I have other instruments that don't fit. I really need a big ass room.
So to wrap it up, the last question I'd like to ask you: what advice you would give to your 20-year-old self?
Well, at 20, I was still in college having fun. So, some of the decisions I made about life decisions about, with marriages and children, I would probably advise myself to wait until I was in my 40s to get married. That's what I would do. Because being on the road 275, 300 days a year is difficult on a relationship. So I'd probably give myself some time and maybe not try to settle down and get married until I was over 45. That's what I would do. Musically, I wouldn't change a thing.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for being on my show. And
thank you, Tomoko. It's good to see you.
Until we speak, sayonara.
Sayonara. Take care.
Don't forget to click subscribe and hit the bell to get notified about new videos of Songwriters Room or my new music or Japanese series. Thank you for watching. Arigato. Sayonara.